boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Last night's OTX main event in the women's super flyweight division was a WBA final eliminator between unbeaten up-and-comer Liana Cruz and seasoned veteran Regina Chavez.
This fight was a testament to why I've covered the women's game for so long. Oftentimes, the girls can put on a more action-packed fight than many of the guys can.
Overpaid guys, overrated, spoiled, some might say, whereas the girls, they get in there, no fuss, no muss, and tear each other up. Let's talk about what we saw. In the opening stanza, it was established that Regina Chavez was not going to let herself get bullied by Liana Cruz's come-forward aggression, and Liana Cruz got off to a horrific start.
Regina Chavez seemed the stronger, noticeably stronger puncher of the two, scoring a big knockdown at the end of the first round, badly bloodying Liana Cruz in the second.
And for a while there, it did not look like this one was going to go the distance, but to my surprise, Liana Cruz rallied back in the third and the fourth.
I gave the first 2 rounds to Regina, the next 2 to Liana, and the 5th round seemed like a swing round to me.
Really, everything after the 5th round seemed like a blur. They all seemed like swing rounds after that. But the adjustment that Liana made after the opening stanza, she was catching and countering on the way in, then smothering, all while getting punches off. And she was doing this often, backing up Regina Chavez
and getting in with body shots and uppercuts, lots of them at the midway point.
While backing up and backing off Regina, who was fighting back ferociously and still seemed the stronger puncher of the two, though she wasn't landing as often as Liana. And that's what I think separated them. I've seen the fight 2 times. The noticeable difference from Liana to Regina is while they're both throwing punches in bunches, Liana Cruz seemed to have landed more often than Regina. It's just that her punches did not have the effect on Regina that Regina's punches had on Liana, but she was still getting off more often, and that matters.
That she was landing more.
Catching and countering, slipping and countering, trying to keep that head on a swivel, trying to keep that head off center, and getting off punches while she does it. Initially, it was thought that after the knockdown in the opening round, Liana may have suffered a torn Achilles tendon. Turns out it was just a few strained ligaments.
Which is not as bad.
Judges scored the fight for Liana Cruz, but I saw some protests afterwards in the comments section of the OTX Instagram page. There were some people that are calling this a robbery, that Regina Chavez was once again hard done by the judges. She was hard done in the Lewkowicz fight, the Artiga fight, and some people feel she was hard done last night with Cruz.
You figure that if she started off the first 2 rounds 3 points ahead,
she would have only needed 2 more rounds for this fight to be a draw, and only 3 more rounds to win it. So that if you then score the fight for Liana, what are you saying? That Regina only won 2 or 3 rounds in a fight this close, in a fight this tight? So that when people call it a robbery, I definitely see where they're coming from.
For me and my money, I scored the first 2 for Regina, but the next 2 for Liana, and from the 5th onwards, everything was a blur. Everything was practically a swing round. These were very tough rounds to score, though if the judges gave the fight to Liana, they gave her maximum consideration.
It needs to be said that if you gave it to Liana by that much, every single swing round, you swung it to Liana.
I picked her to win.
And I like being right. But when people call this a robbery, I do see where they're coming from. The saving grace for Liana Cruz is not everybody's going to be able to do to her what Regina Chavez did to her. I'd wager that the fight with Jasmine Artiga will not be as physically taxing as this fight was.
The WBA champion?
Liana Cruz showed real gusto yesterday, real moxie. After a horrific start, she had to go to the well, and she had to dig deep, rally back.
Still took the fight to Regina.
And what was a somewhat controversial outcome, she still took it to Regina Chavez and walked away with a decision win. She's definitely going to be a major player in this division, and I anticipate if and when she faces Jasmine Artiga, she's going to pry the black and gold title away from her.
We could be looking at the next WBA super flyweight champion.
The moral of the story, Even though both fighters made a decision to fight fire with fire, after the first two, Liana started doing a better job of protecting herself, keeping those hands at home, countering from out of the guard, slipping and countering, rolling and countering. Once she felt the power, she knew not to trifle with Regina Chavez,
who went hell for leather with Liana Cruz, but Liana was able to eke out a decision
and amass valuable experience in doing so. She had to dig deep.
Agreement. He's fighting David Morrell on July the 12th. I can tell you one thing that's changed, and this is not me breaking any confidentiality or privacy agreements in the contract. But I tell you what, I agree with His Excellency, because that ring now has been reduced to 18 foot. It ain't a 20-foot ring.
Yeah.
Because guess what? We all want to see fighters fight, and I'm really happy that ring now for July 12th is an 18 by 18 ring, internal, inside the ropes.
Yes.
That's going to make guys fight, not want to run and use basically,
every inch
of the ring. We're down to 18 foot ring now.
Absolutely.
I'm really happy about that, because my guy is a pressure guy.
Definitely. Now,
the official word from George Kambosos' father is that the ring has been made smaller with the intention of making the fights more exciting,
forcing the action, which is in keeping with Turki El Al Sheikh's recent comments about not being able to support runners and guys who want to glide around the ring.
No more Tom and Jerry fights. Nobody wants to see that, which may not be encouraging for David Morrell in his upcoming fight with Katayev, and may not be encouraging for Shakur Stevenson and his fight with William Zepeda. Some people don't like this because they feel that they are alienating fighters like Shakur Stevenson, but need I remind you that an 18 by 18 foot ring, no rules are being broken because the ring is being made smaller.
And no boxer is bigger than the sport, contrary to their egos and what they might think about themselves in the greater scheme of things.
This actually is for the greater good. The marketability of boxing in the American market that has seen a sharp decline the last few years. Americans are just not watching boxing as much as they used to. Think about the time, the attention, and the money that went into Shakur Stevenson's fight with Edwin de Los Santos, so that we can end up with that snoozer. And think about the time, the attention, and the money that went into the Times Square show. This does more to keep people away from the sport of boxing as a product.
Fights like Stevenson versus De Los Santos, Haney versus Ramirez. The fighters themselves want to make as much money as possible and then make off like bandits afterwards, irrespective of how the paying public feels. And this is not sustainable, because the next time, people may not want to see you fight.
Look at what people are saying about Devin Haney now.
People don't even care that Teofimo categorically ducked him because of how bad his performance was against Jose. The bottom line is, this is supposed to be entertainment. We're supposed to be entertained.
The crowd is not gathered here today to watch you waltz around the ring, taking a tour of the turnbuckles, so that if an 18 by 18 foot ring forces the fighter to fight, forces the action, then we need more of that, because it's for the greater good. It's for the marketability of boxing. So many have associated these movers and jabbers, would-be slicksters, with a particular group of fighters from a particular region. None of that matters if nobody's watching. None of that matters if the audience is not entertained, and no audience equals no sport.
You understand that?
This is about a lot more than your own personal preferences. Now, maybe you like those cerebral fighters. Maybe you appreciate the subtleties and the little things, but the casual observer is not here for the little things. They're here for action.
Not nuances.
And so Stevenson versus Zepeda just got a little bit more interesting. I already wondered, how would Shakur Stevenson deal with the come-forward aggression of William Zepeda, who, if nothing else, is going to throw punches in bunches? Now, Shakur has less room to work with, less places to hide, less ring to navigate.
Good.
I'm a customer first. I'm not one of these content creators trying to be all buddy-buddy with the boxers and rub elbows with them. Entertainment is paramount as far as I'm concerned. And if an 18 by 18 foot ring makes for a more entertaining fight at the expense of Shakur, so be it.
Oh well.
If you let the pure boxers have it their way, they're gonna be fighting in an Olympic-sized swimming pool.
Wearing roller skates.
Nobody wants to see that shit. People don't watch combat sports, the vast majority of them don't, for the nuances. They watch it for the engagement, for the drama, and for the brutality. That's what draws people in, not the finesse.
Turkey's got the right idea. Some people may not like it.
But if you want a sport to watch that's more calm and cool and more to your liking, hey, go watch golf.
Guys telling me they're trying to make boxing more violent? I like it. Elsewhere in the lightweight division, Edwin De Los Santos' promoter, Samson Lewkowicz, split following the Keyshawn Davis fallout.
Sure you guys heard yesterday, promoter Samson Lewkowicz announced Friday that he's amicably parted ways with Edwin De Los Santos and given the lightweight contender his unconditional release following the fallout from the Keyshawn Davis fight last week. Davis was supposed to defend his WBO lightweight title against Edwin De Los Santos on June 7th, but Keyshawn came in 4.3 pounds overweight. Davis was stripped of his title on the scale, and after hours of negotiations to salvage the fight, the proper terms could not be reached, and the top rank on ESPN main event fight in Norfolk, Virginia, was cancelled. Dula Mason's fight with Nicotila was promoted to the main event. Lewkowicz said one of the main reasons for the split was because Edwin De Los Santos still wanted to fight, but he didn't allow him because he feared for his health. I believe I did him right, Lewkowicz told The Ring. Sometimes a warrior doesn't understand that his life could be on the line. Davis was most likely going to be around 165 pounds on the night. De Los Santos would be, at most, 147. That would be suicide. Lewkowicz said he negotiated with Top Rank for De Los Santos to get 50% of his purse. Sources originally informed The Ring's Keith Idek last Friday, once the fight was cancelled, that De Los Santos was set to receive his entire purse. That appears that wasn't the case.
There was a lot of money involved, but I couldn't take a chance for him to get hurt, said Lewkowicz. Davis was so big, it looked like Davis had trained for 140. He was a cheater. Sometimes the fighter doesn't understand that either. Time will say that I was right. Lewkowicz, 74, said he made one of the toughest decisions of his career by leaning on his decades of experience. He referenced the trauma he experienced of being involved in the 2005 fight that ultimately led to Leander Johnson's death and Magomed Abdusalamov's 2013 fight that left him with severe brain injuries.
Lewkowicz said he even passed on promoting Sergio Martinez's recent comeback, a fighter he was responsible for discovering and turning into a star because he feared for the 45-plus-year-old Maravilla's safety at the time. I told Sergio that I couldn't help him because it was wrong and his health was on the line, said Lewkowicz. I say all the time that all my fighters are like my children and I will keep them safe if I can. I didn't want anything like that to happen to De Los Santos. We ended our relationship on very good terms. We even talked twice a day already and had friendly conversations. I consider him a friend. Business is separate. I wish him good luck and I will help him with whatever he needs.
I feel like there are parts missing in this story. You say that it wasn't safe to let him go in there and fight Keyshawn, and that much I understand. But why release him then?
According to Edwin De Los Santos himself, who recently sat down and spoke to the incomparable Broadway Joel, Edwin didn't request his release. You understand that? It's not like he flew off the handle, got upset, and then told Samson to cut him loose.
According to Edwin, Samson made that decision on his own.
Entonces, ¿cómo fue que esto se negoció? ¿Tú lo llamaste, le dijiste, oye, quiero que tú me dejes, o fue él que te llamó? ¿Cómo fue que...?
Yo me sorprendí cuando veo el release en mi teléfono, que él me lo envía. Yo no había pedido release, yo no había pedido nada. O sea, nosotros no hubiéramos hablado, estábamos resolviendo lo de la pelea que iba a pasar con Kishan. Y él me habló, me llamó. O sea, no, cuando él me envía eso, yo lo llamo para saber qué pasó. Me dice, no, como hemos tenido inconvenientes anteriormente en las negociaciones, yo estoy ya en mi edad, tengo que cuidar la salud de mi esposa, porque su esposa siempre está ahí, ¿entiendes? Y yo decidí darte release para que tú continúes tu camino y eso, y hablamos bien, cualquier cosa que tú necesites. Incluso yo lo he llamado y le he mencionado varias cosas, ¿me entiendes?, de las negociaciones, porque ya al anunciar gente libre, todo el mundo me está tirando, ¿me entiendes? Porque, o sea, he demostrado que soy interesante. O sea, tan interesado, ¿me entiendes?
Entonces, tú no tienes ningún problema personal con Samson.
No,
esto fue una situación de negocio que pasa en el negocio.
Exacto.
Él ve que le conviene a él no estar contigo y tú ves que le conviene no estar con él.
Exacto, y es por el mal entendimiento que hay a la hora del negocio, ¿entiendes?
So you see what I mean? Edwin de Los Santos himself said that he was shocked when he got the call that Samson had released him because he didn't even ask for it.
So why did Samson do it? Maybe what it all boils down to is Samson not being able to do nothing for this guy anymore. I mean, in the last 2 years, Edwin's last fight was on a top-ranked show, and his next fight was going to be on a top-ranked show. So Samson not being able to accommodate him may be why he cut him loose.
And so on that predication, it would seem that James Prince, who's got about as much experience as Samson Lewkowicz managing fighters and handling their careers, he's picked up Edwin de Los Santos. And I guess what that means is we can expect to see more of Edwin on top-ranked shows, because where Samson works closely with the PBC, James works closely with Top Rank.
He has for years.
Edwin de Los Santos, a good and serviceable fighter, is never going to become a big pay-per-view attraction, a big box office draw, or even a pound-for-pound star. But he is useful. He is serviceable.
You can still guide him to a title and put him in one or some interesting situations. Now, the first order of business has to be getting him a tune-up fight, because the guy hasn't fought in 2 years. He hasn't fought since the Stevenson fight. So you get him a tune-up fight. And my recommendation would be going up the IBF route to prevent any games with weight, like what we saw from Keyshawn.
This is after you get him a tune-up fight. You take him up the IBF route because the IBF, unlike the other 3 sanctioning bodies, has a rehydration cap. They don't allow guys to just balloon up to whatever weight after the official weigh-in. And if you go up the IBF route, you can do so with some certainty that irrespective of who the IBF champion is, the fight will get ordered. All you have to do is fight in those eliminators and win those eliminators. Now, this would put Edwin on a collision course with Raymond Muratalla, and should he encounter somebody like an Andy Cruz along the way,
that makes for an interesting fight, provided that Andy takes care of business later on today in New York.
Still don't understand why Samson chose to cut Edwin de Los Santos loose. I can only deduce that it's gotta be because he can't do nothing for that fighter, not by himself. The most he can do is rent him out to other promoters that have a broadcast deal, because he himself doesn't have one.
Working closely with the PBC don't have that many fight dates. They're not doing that many shows. So you got a guy sitting around doing nothing.
Decided to set him free. Let him be somebody else's problem. Samson is getting up there in age after all. He's 74.